Good afternoon. I'm Attorney General Marty Jackley, and I'm surrounded by the law enforcement officers and agencies that were involved in protecting the public on April 1st of this year. I just want to take a few minutes and thank all of law enforcement. I mean, these events on April 1st, I think, paid recognition of the dangerous work that law enforcement engages in, the importance of having strong training that we have in South Dakota, and I just appreciate everything that they do, especially as involved in this incident, the Sioux Falls Police Department, the South Dakota Highway Patrol, Lincoln County, Beersford, Minnehaha County, and then the DCI agents that worked both scenes. I talk about both scenes because I've treated it as two separate incidences, the one that occurred in Minnehaha County in Sioux Falls and the second one that occurred in Union County. On April 1st at about 3:30, the Minnehaha County Sheriff's Office, the Fugitive Warrant Division, as well as the Sioux Falls Violent Crimes Unit were looking for Samir Albadani. He was a parole absconder. He had felony warrants. The information that law enforcement had received was that he was likely using methamphetamine, had a firearm in his waistband, and they made comments that he wasn't going back to jail alive. They located him around that time frame. He was found to be in a stolen vehicle. The officers began a short foot pursuit. During that foot pursuit, Albadani turned and fired 2 rounds at a Sioux Falls Police Department officer. He was struck in his left arm. It immediately went down. He was able to get 3 shots fired. He was able to immediately begin putting a tourniquet on himself. And then the second Sioux Falls PD officer that was there immediately got to him, fired 1 shot. So at that point in time, law enforcement had fired 4 times, and Albadani had fired twice, and began providing aid to his fellow officer and drug him and removed him from the scene. At that point in time, Albadani went behind a house. He then was learned stole a vehicle. Law enforcement had received word of the stolen vehicle at about 4:14. So at this point, I, as Attorney General, have asked the DCI to evaluate the officer's conduct. Both officers doing the use of force. Upon that investigation, my findings and the DCI findings are both of those officers were justified in firing their duty weapons. They had use of force used against them. One of the officers was shot in his left arm, and they had every right to return fire at that point and acted appropriately. We learned of the stolen vehicle at 4:14. Law enforcement further learned and identified Albadani in that stolen vehicle driving south on I-29. A pursuit entailed traveling at speeds of over 100 miles per hour. Eventually it reached a point where his vehicle went off the road right at exit 42 in Union County, and that's why you see surrounded here today we have the departments involved. You have Minnehaha County, obviously you have Lincoln County they went through, and then you have Union County, right on the edge of Union County. Once his vehicle was stopped, as Albadani exited the vehicle, there were 2 different trooper vehicles and Beersford Police Department present. The one trooper, as he got out of his vehicle, and as Albadani was getting out of his vehicle, Albadani fired 2 shots at the trooper. One of the shots broke the driver's side windshield. The other trooper took immediate and appropriate action. He used his vehicle to impact Albadani. Before that vehicle impact, Albadani fired 3 more times at the direction of the trooper that was out of his vehicle and the 2 Beersford officers. After the impact on the vehicle, Albadani was on the ground reaching for his waistband, and the other trooper that had gotten out of his vehicle fired and hit him in his right arm. So The second finding that I make as Attorney General with the investigative report by the DCI that we will make public is that the trooper that used his vehicle for impact was justified in those actions. It was appropriate police tactics. It was done appropriately. The second trooper that fired his weapon after having been fired at and having witnessed 3 more shots being fired at his fellow officers was justified in taking those actions of firing his duty weapon. The status of the Sioux Falls police officer that was hit is good. He's in recovery. We just ask that you keep him in your thoughts and prayers. As for the status of the cases, Al-Badani has been charged in Minnehaha County and Union County. He's presumed innocent under the United States Constitution. He's been charged in Minnehaha County of 9 counts. The serious counts are the first-degree attempted murder of law enforcement officers. That carries a 50-year maximum penalty. Similarly, in Union County, he's charged with 11 counts and is again presumed innocent. And the most serious of those counts would again be first-degree attempted murder of a law enforcement officer, 50-year maximum penalty. I just want to again close by saying we understand police work is dangerous. The trust that we gain from the public is important to us. Last year alone, in South Dakota, 486 law enforcement officers were assaulted. We take it very serious at the Attorney General's office and at the state's attorney's offices when that happens. We prosecute to the fullest extent of the law. But I want to recognize the dangerous police work, and I just, on behalf of all law enforcement, want to thank the public for the trust and the respect that you give to law enforcement. And then just lastly, in closing out, that night I had to ask over 20 DCI agents to go out and work both scenes. I'm not the easiest boss always, but I just want them to know how much I appreciate what they do. And for me, I have a special agent here, Brian Schnabel, who's in the room, who had received the Agent of the Year award because not too long ago he literally was run over while trying to apprehend an individual, got up with a broken wrist, apprehended him and handcuffed him. And I just think that's the work that we do in law enforcement, and I appreciate that very much as Attorney General. I will try to answer whatever questions you have, recognizing that these are 2 ongoing criminal proceedings, and some of this information will become public at a later time, and we do issue 2 fairly detailed summaries for you.
3:30-ish on April 1st, when law enforcement identified Al-Badani, he was found driving a vehicle. Did they identify him by the plates on that vehicle?
I'm not going to go into full detail how they identified him, but he was recognized. They had information where he was at. They knew it was a stolen vehicle. I would further add that the 9mm Glock that he fired and shot the law enforcement officer was also stolen. The report will indicate that the drug testing results on him were positive for methamphetamine and cannabis.
You touched upon this when you said I had to get 20 DCI agents up at night. I would imagine this was a very early morning, or maybe you don't have a lot of police necessarily working on shift. Can you just, I mean, where there's full mobilization, it sounded like, police officers being called. I mean, when a police officer gets shot, I mean, that sounds like a serious deal, right? I mean, so can you describe that scenario?
I mean, first of all, we're blessed in South Dakota. I mean, I reflect back, I was Attorney General then, but we haven't had a police officer shot like this since 2015 when we lost McCandless and Armstrong on August 2nd. When this happened, certainly, you know, it was all hands on deck, and you saw that from the agency standing behind me, from Beersford to Lincoln County to Minnehaha County to Sioux Falls to the state troopers. We needed to, number one, protect the public in Sioux Falls, and once we learned that he was on the interstate, we had to protect the public on the interstate. And so initially when this happened, our first and foremost duty is to get aid to our officer and protect the public, and they did just that. And then once the public was safe, we had 2 crime scenes. We had a crime scene in Sioux Falls where the weather conditions were causing us to lose evidence, and we had another, or potentially make it more challenging to obtain evidence, and we had another crime situation in Union County. And so we had to divide forces. We have great local partners in that, but certainly we had to do that without Sioux Falls because they were part of that, as well as without some of the state troopers because they were part of that. And so we were teaming up with others such as, Minnehaha County, Lincoln County, and
So they
doing,
couldn't be part of the investigation?
correct,
Okay.
part of the justified shooting investigation. So it was all hands on deck doing what we could do to preserve the evidence, preserve videos, in order for us to arrive at today, having looked at the videos, talked to the witnesses, done the forensic testing on the evidence, to be able to say all 4 of the officers that were put in an unenviable position of having to exert force did so in an appropriate manner and were left with no choice.
Is that like cooperating with investigators? Is he being forthright about how he saw the events that day happen?
I'm not able to speak on his behalf. He would have to talk to his defense attorneys on that.
I'm familiar with like Sioux Falls Police and their training procedure and everything like that. But the state troopers, is there, like, they qualify with their firearms every certain amount of period? Can you just explain kind of what their regular training is?
Certainly. We take pride in South Dakota that all of our officers, whether you're the Highway Patrol, the DCI, Sheriff's Office, PD, you have to qualify. The troopers, they have an initial certification. They do that with all of law enforcement, where it's 13 to 14 weeks, typically in peer. Now we have some additional opportunities because of here in Sioux Falls. So they'll take the basic class. And then, much like the DCI, once you're done with the basic class that everybody takes, you take specialty areas. So at that point in time, the Highway Patrol has additional training to address just what you see one of these officers doing on April 1st. DCI has a little different level of training dealing with certain violent crime investigations, other drug type interdiction, but they do have advanced training. And the Highway Patrol, in addition to having the basic certification, the Highway Patrol initial training, they continually are doing advanced training.
What do you think are the biggest lessons for the public and law enforcement going forward now with these situations in the rearview mirror?
I mean, I think the biggest lesson is, law enforcement's here to serve our communities. They do it well, but when doing so, it's a dangerous job. And on this incident, several officers put their life in danger, not just with being shot at 7 times, but traveling at speeds of over 100 miles per hour in dangerous weather conditions and other dangerous situations. I think the other lesson learned here is, what is somebody doing out as a parole absconder with methamphetamine and a firearm in our communities? That's a dangerous situation, and that has to be looked at.
You said he made a comment he wouldn't be going back to jail alive. Those type of comments certainly accelerate the level of danger for the community.
They do. They accelerate it with that, combined with likelihood of meth use and having a firearm in their waistband.
Final question for me, it's a delicate one, but since this is a politically hot topic, I'm going to ask it. This isn't exactly a Norwegian name. Did you know what the immigration status of this particular individual was?
A United States citizen born in Illinois.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else?
I just again then want to close as Attorney General for thanking not just the officers and entities behind me, but for all the law enforcement officers that were not just a part of this, but are out in the public every day protecting us. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Call if you need anything. Thank you.